In today's episode, I talk about good fountain pens for kids, what's good to carry with you on your military deployment, and what really gives a fountain pen its soul. Hey there, Brian Goulet here of GouletPens.com, and it is episode number 140 of Goulet Q&A. I got 7 questions for you this week. It's a pretty decent one. I had 8, but honestly I had to take out one question at the last minute because I realized I didn't even have what it was I was trying to show you. Anyway, got something special going on this week. We are announcing the winner for our 50K giveaway that we started last week. Gotta say, we had an incredible response. Like, I knew that just having an entry be pretty low bar of leaving a comment on YouTube, that tends to have more entries. But we had nearly 700 entries and to win this, possibly win this 2016 limited edition Vanishing Point Guilloche. Number 201, and we did select a winner. Before I announce the winner, though, I want to give mad props to my team, especially Colin, who helped to come up with the idea and then had to sift through every single one of those comments. I did read a whole bunch of them myself. You guys gave some great feedback. It was really, really cool to read not only what was your favorite video, but why. You guys, just did a great job, and it was really kind of cool just to see what it was that you felt compelling to share about those videos. So that was really neat. But Colin not only did that, but he also compiled and kind of categorized the types of videos so that we could use your feedback about what you absolutely love the most so that we can have discussion about how can we do more like that. So we were doing a little bit of intel, a little bit of giveaway kind of stuff. So it really is going to be a big win for everybody, especially for one person who's going to get this very pen. So after going through it all, Colin scraped the whole thing, give everybody a number in a spreadsheet, and then choose a random number generator to pick one winner. And that winner is Stephanie Griffith. So Stephanie Griffith, you are a lucky winner, and I will read Stephanie's comment to you because it was pretty cool. It said, my favorite YouTube video is the Atlanta Pen Show 2016 recap. I was honored enough to meet the Goulets at the pen show, and I make a minor cameo in this video. It was so great to hang out with fellow fountain pen enthusiasts and meet some of the awesome people I've met through social media. How cool is that? How many of you can say that you were actually in the video that you chose as your favorite? So that is pretty neat. I promise that was not a factor in choosing the winner. That was just a happy coincidence. Really random. Like, we don't even go to that many pen shows, so the odds are pretty low that would even be the case. But there you go. I think we had maybe 3 videos about a pen show out there and out of all the 1,000 that we've done. But hey, there you go. So Stephanie, congratulations. You will not get this particular pen because this one's mine, but I have number 201 for you in a box. Colin's going to be reaching out to you to get your information there so that he can send you your pen. I'm sorry to everybody else who didn't win, but hopefully everybody's going to win because you're going to get to read some awesome comments and feedback about the videos. Got to relive a lot of great memories about videos and stuff that were done. That was really pretty cool. And then just some feedback about some of the videos that you all felt were really the best. Top 5 fountain pens for newbies was at the top, so that was pretty cool because I got to say I put that video together in like 10 minutes. But hey, when you hit on something good, sometimes it doesn't take very long. I think Jimmy Buffett wrote, what was it? Oh gosh, why am I recalling this song when I don't even know it that well? The one about the pina coladas, right? He wrote that in like 2 hours or something crazy. Anyway, what else? Fountain Pen 101, a lot of you shouted out that. A bunch of specific videos, but really just the whole series overall was the next top one. Top shading inks was actually really up there. I think it's because I just really had a way of rocking that trench coat with the shorts on. I promised there were shorts on underneath that trench coat. I don't know. Maybe that's why I got a lot of views. And then the next level pens was pretty good too. So basically ones where I'm like really embarrassing myself, I'm seeing doing pretty good. The quick draw video was up there as well. So really kind of interesting. So I'm glad you guys are enjoying the ones where we're having a little more fun. Yeah, so that was really cool. Congrats, Stephanie, on that. And then let's see here. Been up to some other fun things this week. We have slowed down a little bit. We've had so many new product releases this month, and last week really just like was over the top between the black and white vanishing point, the Pelikan, M400 tortoise shell brown. Oh gosh, I can't remember everything that the Lamy Luxes. It's just so many things. The Guilloche was a little bit before that, but it's really been a pretty crazy September. So you guys get to take a little breath this week because we don't have a whole ton that's going on. So that's pretty good. We also got to welcome back an old friend of ours, Katie, who is on our customer care team almost 2.5 years ago, has actually come back. She's moved back to the area, and she is now on our team again. So it's really cool. She is an absolute delight. Some of you who've been shopping us for a long time, you may have had interactions with her previously. So be sure to give her a friendly shout out because she's back on the team and rocking it good. And then let's see here. What else have we had? Physical inventory has, well, basically at this point has already happened. But we do that every quarter at our company. We have 3,700 different SKUs, different types of products, and we have to physically count every single one of them every quarter just to make sure, because things get off, especially when you get small things, they can get misplaced. We can accidentally ship things to the wrong people, and sometimes we'll make it right if we know about it, but sometimes we aren't notified, or we'll ship somebody something extra and they'll never tell us, and so we get off on our counts. So it's a chance for us to stop and just shut down the whole company and count every single thing that we have physically in our warehouse. That way we know when we go back live that we have actually what we say we have on our website, and you're not buying something and we're saying, whoops, we oversold it, sorry. That's not a great experience. So we do that every single quarter to make sure that we're spot on. This is a really important one for us too, because it's the last one that we have before we go into the holiday season, which is our, we're a retail store. So, it's our busiest season of the year. So we want to make sure going into that we are doing A-okay. And then lastly, before I get into the questions, do have some new pens to talk about that are potential ones that we could carry that I really want your feedback on. Okay, so these are the new Parker IM and Parker Urban. So that's a pen that we have been carrying for some time, and they've kind of stagnated a little bit. They've come out with some special edition colors here and there that have done pretty well for us, but the line in general has been pretty slow and uninteresting for most of you. They're revamping the whole line of both of those pens. They're changing the nib design. They are changing the color offerings, some of the accent material, accents of it. The Urban, is very curvy. They're kind of flattening it out a little bit. They're changing some of the trim and center bands and stuff like that on the IM and the Urban. So I recommend that you go check those out. We have pictures of them posted up on our blog. I have a link on our blog, which you might as well just go click on the Parker one. But anyway, go check it out. Look up some of these new pens. So I think they're pretty slick looking. There's a lot of different color options, and also they used to only come with a medium nib. Now they're also going to come in a fine nib. So I think that's going to really make the big difference for these pens. So it might make it pretty exciting for you. And these pens, the Urban is in the $60 to $88 range. The IM is in the $44 to $76 range. So, that's list price. And so I think that's going to be pretty compelling for a lot of you, because they're solidly made pens. I just think maybe it haven't been as exciting because of some of the color offerings and the fact it's only medium nib. Maybe the nib has been somewhat dry too, so I think maybe that'll be appealing. I haven't written with the pens yet, so I don't know if the nib redesign has really helped a lot, but I will find out. So I'm trying to gauge interest and see, is this something you guys are interested in? So we'll see. With that many colors and 2 different nibs, I think it's something like 60 different offerings, and so we have to really make sure that we know it's something everybody wants before we commit into it. We might carry select colors and stuff. There's a pretty dynamite blue, I gotta say. So I'm pretty interested in it, but I'd love to get your feedback on it. All right, so let's get into some questions. Let's kick it off. I really only have pen and writing questions and ink questions. Just didn't end up choosing a big variety this week, but still pretty interesting. So starting out with Ramananda R, forgive me if I say that wrong, on Facebook. Can nibs be made with anything other than metals? So yeah, absolutely they can. So with the question you're asking, I'm not sure if you mean can you get a plastic nib that looks exactly like this? and just swap it out. Generally speaking, no. Everything that you see on a conventional fountain pen is going to have a nib made out of some type of metal. Now the type of metal could vary. It could be titanium or gold or stainless steel. Those are really the big ones. I don't really know of any other material actually other than those, but you certainly could get a variety of different types of nibs out of those combinations. But metal is really the only one that's durable and malleable enough to be able to use in this form with the whole feed and nib as it is in a conventional pen, conventional fountain pen. Now there are other types of pens out there. For example, there's a glass pen. You know, it still uses a nib. It's a completely different design though, you know, just to give you an idea here. You know, the way that these glass pens work, this is a Jeroboam glass pen. Also have a roller and cleaner one here. It's a very different design. They're very pretty, aren't they? But they still use a nib, but it's a completely different setup than you have on a fountain pen. You know, for example, I have a Jinhao 159 right here. So this conventional fountain pen, you know, it's got a feed that mates up to the back of a metal nib that has a slit in the middle of it that the ink draws down through capillary action through this whole mechanism, and that is right on the tip. Glass pens are a little bit different. So they're fluted, and they're all hand done too. They're fluted, so it still works by capillary action, but it doesn't feed through the glass, right? It just wraps around it, and it goes down through the fluting. So as you're writing with it, you're writing and it's kind of loaded up almost as a feed channel is in every single flute. So as you're writing, when you get kind of like that section that runs out, you just turn it a little bit and it kind of keeps on writing with the other channels that are touching the page. So it's glass, so it's a very different kind of feel. It has no give to it whatsoever. So it's very hard, very brittle. So it's a very different writing experience. But you can still use fountain pen ink with it, which I think is kind of the point. Now it's a dip instrument, so it's not quite the same. The only true fountain pens that I know that use these nibs per se use metal nibs. So the glass pen is going to be a dip pen. There's other types of nibs that you can get, or well, you call them nibs loosely, but basically other types of pens that use a liquid ink with capillary action like that. You can get them out of glass like this. You can also think about like the old school, you know, quill, the feather quills. That was essentially the same concept. So it had a feather, you know, within the whatever the quill part of the feather would have a cut down the middle of it, and that would be where the ink would draw down. It's not very commonly used today, but it's certainly a material that can be used. You can also use, you know, brush pens. That I think isn't really considered to be a nib. But then you can use other things, like you get into more artistic calligraphy kind of stuff. You can use, you know, reeds and folded nibs. You can use like a bamboo and stuff like that. And it works sort of in the same concept of the capillary action and how a nib works in a fountain pen. But it's not the kind of thing that's going to swap in and out and all that kind of thing. So there are different varieties of writing instruments and materials that can be used, but it's going to have its own kind of flair to it. You know what I mean? A glass pen really isn't super comparable to a fountain pen, just like a bamboo pen is not going to be the same as any of these other ones. So different materials that are used for the pens are going to be so different really fundamentally in how they write that they kind of fit their own classification, and I wouldn't consider them to be the same as a fountain pen. All right, Lisa R. on Facebook asks, I'm deployed and I don't want to have a treasured fountain pen with me and can't keep bottled ink easily. What is your favorite pen that accepts standard cartridges which isn't too expensive? Well, first of all, thank you very much for your service. I appreciate what you're doing. I think there's a lot of folks that are kind of in your position, believe it or not, get a pretty good following in the armed services for fountain pens. I think it's a great way for people to be able to write home, to be able to kind of defuse from just kind of the tenseness, you know, the stress that can happen when you're deployed. And, you know, it's just a great tool that a lot of people get into. So mad props there. We also give free shipping to APOs overseas. So if you are in the military, we try to help you out a little bit there. So I'm assuming that when you're talking, going back to specifically to your question, when you say standard cartridges, I'm assuming you're talking about like standard international, you know, the pretty typical looking ones that are somewhat familiar. I have a whole bin of different cartridges back here, and I'm trying to find my standard short ones. But you know, it's the pretty typical ones that you're probably very familiar with. You may have pens that have this little doodad in it. Now we have a lot, believe it or not, a lot of the brands that we end up carrying have proprietary cartridges. But we have a bunch though. I mean, it's definitely the standard international is more of a variety, especially if you're deployed in Europe. You're going to find these standard internationals much more common than you will any of the proprietary ones. You know, except maybe if you're in Germany, you're more likely to see Lamy and, you know, that kind of thing. But in general, the standard international is much more standard internationally, funny enough. So yes, there's a good variety. You can actually look at the filters that we have on our site on Goulet pens for standard international short cartridges, and that'll give you an idea. That's kind of what I looked at, but I think that, you know, basically any, let's see here, what are my notes here? I made some weird notes. Okay, so yeah, I chose a bunch of pens here that I thought would be pretty good for you, and I tried to stick the ones that are fairly inexpensive. And I have some that get a little higher up in the range, but I'll explain what's going on there. So to start out, some less expensive ones, you know, Jinhao. These are standard international. We only have medium nibs for them, but you can always swap it out with a Goulet nib or some other number 6. And it's not still too huge an investment. You know, you're looking 10, 12 bucks for these without an upgraded nib. You can use cartridge. It comes with a converter, but you can use cartridges for sure. So that would be one option for you. Nemesign might be another one. Now this is a plastic one, so it's maybe not quite as durable. The Jinhao ones are metal, so they're quite durable. So this is still fairly inexpensive, $20, but a lot of different nib options there. But you know, $20 is still not a massive investment that, you know, if you're going to be, you know, throwing it around, might not be too bad for you. I have a Quaco Sport, which is not too bad. Very portable as well. It's a great pocket pen, so it could be good for you. It works pretty well with cartridges. If you eyedropper convert it, then you might get some leaking and stuff, especially depending on your environment and you're moving around a lot. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but with the cartridges, you should be in pretty good shape. Around 25 bucks for one of those. It's not too bad. Moving up a little bit in price, this is a faber-castell loom, which this is the piano finish one, so it's very, very shiny, but you could certainly go with some of the matte finishes and stuff. They're pretty cool and they're very durable as well. These take standard internationals and they're around $40, so and a snap cap too, which I really like. And then if you really want to get into a little bit more of an investment, but you know, I think it would be pretty cool. I know these are American-made ones, Karas Customs. You have the Fountain K and the ink, and these are very solidly machined pens that are going to be very durable for you to carry around. They also use standard international cartridges, and you get the cool part of getting somebody that I know they support the troops, so that's pretty cool. And then also American-made machined is Tactile Turn, the Gist, which you can get in polycarbonate or copper from us. They have some other versions as well, but these ones are all a little more expensive. They're in like the $80 to $100 range, but you get what you pay for, and these are going to be pretty darn solid and perform well that I think you would enjoy. And there's one other pen that I wanted to just give a shout out to that I don't have personally. It's something I've thought about sourcing out, but I've heard some good things about it and seen one in person once. I actually don't own this pen, which is silly because it's not that expensive, but it's called the Schrade Tactical Pen. Now there's actually a variety of tactical fountain pens out there, but they're kind of obscure and there's like only one nib size, and it's really more of a, I'm not going to call it a gimmick, but it's really it's the tactical pen first and the fountain pen second. But they are out there, and the Schrade tactical fountain pen's like $25 or something from other places I've seen. But it's a pretty durable pen and not that expensive, so it might be worth you looking into as well. All right, this next one is from otaku.crafts on Instagram. What do you think about fountain pens designed for kids like the Lamy ABC, Pelikan Happy Pen, or the bruynzeel My Grip? I have no idea what that last one is, but I'm happy to give you my thoughts about kid pens. I'm actually a fan of these pens, generally speaking. I find that they perform pretty well. It's kind of funny because as I was looking this up, I was like, man, that Lamy ABC, we've been carrying that for years. And I was like, wait a minute, do we still carry that? Because honestly, as soon as we picked up Lamy, we picked up basically every Lamy we could, and that was a pretty affordable one. It uses the same nibs as all the other pens. I would be showing it to you right now, except we don't carry it anymore. It was such a poor seller for us that we stopped carrying it. And believe me, we didn't do that lightly. We carried it too long. I mean, we carried it it didn't sell well for the last 3 years, and we still kept carrying it because we love Lamy and we want to do that. But I'm not joking. It was like a couple of pens a year of this $22 pen or whatever it was. It was just not popular at all. I think it's because for us, we don't have a huge following of like kid pens and stuff like that. Most of the people we have are enthusiasts that are, more experienced in their fountain pen journey or life journey or whatever you want to call it. They're buying other pens, and a lot of people definitely they get their kids into it and stuff like that, but they're buying Lamy Safaris and Pilot Metropolitans and, the Nemesigns and Jinhaos and stuff like that. The kid pens that you're talking about here, the Lamy ABC, and I don't have a Pelikan Happy, but I have a Pelikan Twist, which is definitely marketed towards children as well. There's no clip, there's no, not a lot of branding on it necessarily. It's got bright colors. Usually they have some kind of triangular grip to make it easier to hold, which actually is kind of nice. It usually has a very stiff nib that is in just one size, which is usually about a medium size. And they always have holes in them too, because any pen that's marketed towards children needs to have holes in them because it's a choking hazard if they don't. So if you market it towards children, you have to put holes in them. So no eyedropper conversion. So I think that just for a variety of reasons, it doesn't tend to sell very well for us. But if you get your hands on it from somewhere else that does carry them regularly, I think they're pretty solid pens. I find they write pretty well. They're usually very, very smooth. They work great with cartridges, converters. Usually they'll fit converters. So I think they're worth taking a look at, and they're usually not that expensive. I forget how much this one is. I got this as a sample from Pelikan, so I don't actually know the price offhand, but usually you're looking in somewhere in the $15 to $25 range for these kid pens, which is like, maybe that's the problem. It's not cheap enough to really warrant, it's not like it's $4, right? But if you're gonna make that kind of an investment on a pen, you're probably gonna get something a little different. I don't know. But I think in general, they don't do that great for us here, but I got no problem with them, and I think they're pretty cool. They can be pretty cool. It's worth taking a look at if that's your thing. Ryanshh on SSSHH on Instagram. Ryanshh on Instagram. What exactly is a fountain pen? By that I mean if I have a fine black Metropolitan with black ink and a medium green Metropolitan with green ink, and I switch the body, which body is screwed onto each section, did I just change the ink color in my pens? If I clean the nibs and feeds and only swap converters, did I? What if I keep the sections, converters, and bodies, but swap out the nibs and feeds? In short, is there a piece that you feel gives each pen its identity? Or its soul, as I said in the intro? This is the question I was referring to. It's an interesting question, because really when you boil it down, you're talking about what makes a pen that pen, right? You take a pen like the Pilot Metropolitan. They make lots of these pens, right? Like these are mass-produced pens. These are not hand, manufactured one at a time by some craftsman in his garage. These things are, pumped out, over time by machines. That's part of why they cost so little. But you figure, okay, well, if I have multiples, which I should have grabbed multiples. If I have multiples and I swap the caps, well, now is that cap on the different part of the pen, or what? Like, what is it? So, and then it's like you're talking about basically if you swap out different parts or you swap out converters, like where is the pen really? So I haven't really reflected on this much before, but for me, definitely I would be remiss if I didn't point to the importance of the nib and the feed, because really, when you think about it, the nib and the feed is the working end of the pen. I mean, really, all of the pen has function to it, but the soul, the heart of that pen really is the nib. That's what touches the page. It provides you your feedback. It affects your flow, your writing width, the feedback, the feel. So much of the experience has to do with the nib itself. But at the same time, it's also not the part that really people think about all that much when they're buying a pen. I mean, yeah, well, actually, that's true. A lot of people think about the nib, and actually the nib is usually the greatest cost when it comes to the pen too. So I'm trying to think about like your car, like your tires are the part that actually touch the road. But I think the nib is usually a little more important to the overall writing experience than say your tires are to your car. You know, it's not quite the same. So I started going down that road for the analogy and then I just abandoned it. And then I had to explain it because it didn't make any sense and maybe it still doesn't. Anyway, so yes, if you swap the section on your pen, you know, do you still have the same pen? Like where's the pen? If I take a Metropolitan and I have no section in here and I have this, which one is the pen? Well, really none of it, right? These are all parts. And it's interesting because when you think about the pens and how they're made, really it's all just parts. It's not a complete pen until it's all put together. So your answer, I guess, is none of it until it's a complete pen. But that said, even though I feel like the nib is the most important part of your writing experience when you have the pen, in terms of the pen itself, I think I'm gonna have to go with actually the body of the pen is really what makes that pen that pen. And let me just go with you on my logic on this one. So when you take about a pen such as this Visconti Opera Master limited edition, there were only 20 of these pens made. They are numbered, and yes, they have amazing nibs, but this nib is the same nib, not the exact same one, but made in the same style as what's used on the Homo sapiens, the Divina, you know, other pens. This nib I can actually remove as a whole nib unit, which, yeah, might as well go ahead and do that for you. I can remove this nib as a whole nib unit as soon as I can find my special handy dandy tool. If I can find it. I should have grabbed this ahead of time, shouldn't I? You know, it wouldn't be a Brian Goulet Q&A if I didn't go rifling through my drawers for something that I should have been prepared for, right? Oh gosh, even if I have it. See, now I'm gonna end up rifling for nothing. Now I'm bound and determined. I gotta find this thing or else I'm really gonna look like a fool. Yep, and that's where we're at. I'm gonna look like a fool. Okay, so I'm not gonna actually unscrew this thing for you, but you get the idea. Just imagine how amazing it would be if I did that for you right now. Now I'm running over my mic cord with my chair. Oh gosh, what an amateur. Okay, so I can actually remove this nib unit and I can swap it onto another one and put it back in. That really doesn't matter. As long as it's a working nib. Really, what you're buying here is the pen body with a nib on it, of course. So when I really boil it down and think about it, yes, the nib matters for the writing experience itself, but it's really the body that makes a pen that pen. But I know that's going to be up for debate, so I would definitely love to hear your feedback in the comments about that one. But I think that's where, if I really had to pick one thing, it's the body of the pen that's going to have to do it. Not even the cap necessarily, though. I don't know. When you get into some limited editions, the numbering is on the cap. So really, if it's that, then it's where the number is in a limited edition scenario. But that's where I'm at. Like how I just talked myself out of it as I was talking. Anyway, let's go on to some ink questions, shall we? Quit digging myself into a hole. All right, Kate P on Facebook. I have a theory that waterproof inks dry out in pens faster than non-waterproof inks. What say you? So as a generalization, which I always hate to do, but I do it constantly anyway, I would say that's probably true as a generalization. Now, there are different types of waterproof inks out there that can perform very differently. So really what I'm talking about here is inks that are made to be water resistant when they're on paper. So it's not necessarily, I mean, it's kind of funny because all of these inks use water in the process. So there's some kind of reaction that's happening on the paper that's causing it to become waterproof. So because there are different types of these waterproof inks, you may experience different levels of them drying out in your pen because it's not the relationship between the ink and your pen that's causing that waterproofness. It's a relationship between the ink and the paper, really the fiber in the paper. So it's not like because it's permanent ink or because it's waterproof ink, it's definitely going to be more of an issue in my pen. I think that it happens to coincide that way sometimes as a generalization. So because you don't necessarily know which of those waterproof inks are going to perhaps be a little more maintenance and dry out a little bit more, it's good to approach all of them as if they will from a maintenance perspective. That way you are not caught kind of blindsided by an ink that can then cause trouble. Because I will say a couple of them, if you leave them in and they dry out, can really be more of a pain to clean out. So it's a good idea to treat most waterproof inks as if they're going to be more trouble and then dry out. And use them more regularly, clean them thoroughly, clean them more often. That is really where I would stay with all those. So really there's 3 main types of waterproof fountain pen inks that I can think of off the top of my head. Not off the top of my head, I thought about it for a few minutes, but you have iron gall inks, which are not super popular today, but that was the original kind of waterproof ink. The oldest that they have is on the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is the oldest written thing that they have. So what was the Dead Sea Scrolls, like 5,000 years old or something like that? Pretty old. 3,000? Oh gosh, I should look that up. Why did I even go down that road? I didn't even need to say the years. If I intended on saying that, I would have looked it up ahead of time. Anyway, you guys will correct me in the comments. Or you can Google it. It's on Wikipedia somewhere. So there's that. Iron gall inks. Modern iron gall inks are not pure iron gall. Pure iron gall inks are pretty dry and can be troublesome in your pens. The modern ones, though, are just water, kind of a, I don't know, watered down is a loose term that I'm using here. I don't know if that's technically what it is, but it's a reformulated version of iron gall that, yes, it will oxidize and be permanent on the page, but it's not going to be as corrosive in your pen as traditional iron gall inks have been. There's cellulose reactive inks, such as Noodler's, which is really, it's kind of a conventional ink until it bonds with a cellulosic material, such as wood pulp and paper or cotton fiber. That's when it really bonds to those. It takes a little while, but once it bonds to them, it will not go away. So, but it makes no difference usually what other material it's on, as long as there's no cellulose on it, it's in pretty good shape. And then the last one is pigmented inks. So not a whole ton of these ones either, but things like platinum carbon black, platinum pigmented blue, the Sailor nano inks, those have pigments in them that dry basically on the surface of the paper. Those ones are actually, the iron gall and the pigmented inks are the ones that you really don't want to like dry out in your pen because they're really more of a pain to clean out. The Noodler's inks are not so bad, because they're cellulose reactive. They really only react on the page with that cellulosic fiber. And so the Noodler's ones are a little more hit or miss. Some of the Noodler's inks can be drier. I don't even know necessarily if it's related to the waterproofness factor of the ink, because there's certain ones like, Noodler's Black Eel, for example, which is a lubricated permanent black ink that actually is a really good, doesn't dry quickly at all. So it really kind of depends. That's the Noodler's ones, the cellulose reactive ones are the ones that probably vary the most in terms of how dry or whatnot they are in your pen. But the iron gall and the pigmented ones, I would say definitely those will dry out more. And if they do, they're a pain to clean out. So as a general rule, I would approach all of them and say really the iron gall and the other ones, like especially if you know that pen is prone to drying out more anyway, clean it out like every 3 or 4 days. Like really clean it out pretty often. Maybe wait a week if you have to. The Noodler's ones, you maybe don't have to wait quite as long, but it's also going to depend a lot on the pen and how well it seals and stuff like that. So again, I'm generalizing, but that's a pretty good approach. Oh my gosh, I'm like, my mic cable's all caught up in my wheel now. It's like causing issues. Hang on now. It's like tangled in there. Okay. Just making sure I didn't fray the cord or anything. Nope. Okay, we're good. We're good, Jenny. We're good. Jenny's sitting there like, oh gosh, Brian. Okay. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled program. All right, next question I have, this is for Jocelyn S. on Facebook. I hope if I hit the desk right. When my hands are stained but dry, the ink doesn't seem to rub off on things like white door jambs or other things I've touched that would be a shame to stain by accident. Can getting my hands wet by washing or sweating cause old ink spots on my fingers to stain things I touch? So this is a very nuanced question, right? Like, those who are not into fountain pens are like, are you crazy? Why are you getting ink on your fingers? I personally wear ink on my fingers as a point of pride. I don't have any ink on my fingers today. In fact, I feel a little weird if I don't have it on there. Every now and then I'll just kind of like, it's like putting cologne on. I'm like, okay, whew, okay, that feels good. Now I got some ink on my fingers. I'm like, oh yeah, well, Diamine Marine, love it. So yes, if you get ink on your fingers, like I just did, first thing I usually try to do is like rub it around, smooth it around, grab a little paper towel, you know, just kind of get the most of it, right? Like, and I have very sweaty, oily hands, so I feel very qualified to answer this question. In this kind of situation, I'll try to wipe it off. And then I find that if I do nothing with it after it's dried, if I give it time, oil and sweat and stuff like that it's not like it's gonna leave like fingerprints on places and stuff like that, but it can rub off if you haven't washed your hands at all or done anything beyond just a wiping. So you know, in this situation, I don't totally freak out. You know, I'm okay to write, I'm okay to kind of function normally, but I will try to make it to the restroom or the sink or whatever and wash my hands in a somewhat timely fashion, just because the very fact that I've got this ink that has not at least been attempted to be washed off my hand, if it gets wet or something like that, it can be more prone to stain. Now, that said, I also don't completely freak out about ink being on my fingers, because I know once I do that initial washing, it's pretty much good to go. Like whatever is left after that first kind of hand washing, if you're using soap, you're getting most of it, especially the stuff that's on the surface. If you've already done that and it's not coming off in that act of washing, it's probably not going to come off in any noticeable way on anything else that you have going on. Now, if you have super expensive white Egyptian cotton sheets or something like that, okay, you may want to be a little more diligent about what you're doing. Some other little tricks like shampoo or what's it called? Stuff called the hand sanitizer actually works pretty well too. Especially if you're in a pinch, if you're in your office and you can't make it to the bathroom or whatever to go wash your hands, hand sanitizer and then a paper towel can really do a good job in a pinch. And that is not like a weird thing to be keeping around, you know, just hand sanitizer. It's not like you have a bottle of shampoo and you gotta do it. But if you have hand sanitizer, it tends to work pretty well. But yeah, I find that if you use that as a general rule, you're gonna be okay. At least that's how I've been doing it for the last 7 years. So I haven't found that to be very troublesome or whatever. But I do find that, like right now, I just got ink on my fingers. If I'm really sweaty and it's hot and all this kind of stuff, and I'm scratching my face, my forehead is really oily, I might get a mark on my forehead. So it's a good idea to try to get off where you can, at least in that initial washing, and then you should be pretty good from there on out. Awesome. Man, we're moving along. I am like really gonna set a record here for not a super long Q&A today. That's all right. This Quen is this is a Quen, not a question. This is a Quen. This Quen is from Stephen F. on Facebook. Is it only direct sunlight that causes ink to degrade? I have a relatively dim light bulb in my room, and I have my bottled inks displayed on my shelf. The curtains on my windows are dark, thick, and don't really let in much sunlight at all. Is light from a low wattage incandescent bulb safe for my inks, or should I only keep them in their boxes or in a drawer? All right, this sounds like an uber specific question, which it is. But I'm going to expand your mind a little bit, because this kind of touches on some stuff that I've addressed before, and I have some research that I did on this question about different light sources and how much UV they put off. So I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to give you like specific blah, 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 whatever science stuff. But I will say, okay, in general, when you have a bottle of ink, if you keep this bottle of ink in its glass bottle form out on your desk right next to a window in direct sunlight, there is UV that is coming from that sunlight that is going to break down the dye that is used inside your ink over time. How much? Ooh, that was thunder. I don't know if you just heard that. How much is it really going to affect it? It's hard to say. I think it's more like something that you're talking about, like if it's something you're going to be using to store it. Actually, did you say anything? No, you didn't even say anything about how long you're trying to take it. I know other people that have asked me this before, like I'm trying to keep my ink for the next 20 years. What's the best way to store it? Yada, yada, yada. It's not like if you buy a bottle of ink and you're going to use it up in the next year or two that you really need to worry about it that much. And I think that most ink manufacturers, when they make really pretty bottles, such as Pilot Shizuku or Faber-Castell, or lots of these other ones that are pretty. I'm trying to pull out a pretty bottle of ink right now. Here we go. Pilot Shizuku. It's got a beautiful bottle, right? Like, and if you want to display your beautiful, expensive bottle of ink, you want to put it out. And if you put it out and you're like, well, what's going to happen? Is the sunlight going to destroy my ink? And then I'm not going to be able to look at it anymore. And I got to keep it in this box, which is also pretty beautiful. So it's not the worst thing, but still it's not as beautiful as the bottle. Brian, what do I do? Well, if it's something that you're going to be using pretty regularly, just keep it out. Just keep it out and use it. I don't think it's going to break down quick enough. It's not like in 6 months' time it's going to change to gray, you know, because it's destroyed everything. But it's this kind of thing like over time, the UV is going to cause it harm. Just like UV causes your skin harm, and it causes harm to your deck and your siding on your house and everything. Sunlight is actually pretty strong. So you want to be careful whenever you're putting anything out in direct sunlight. And dye in general is not very UV resistant. That's why artists don't use dyes when they're doing artwork. They use pigments because it's much, much more archival in direct sunlight. So there you go. So whether it's in bottle form or on a piece of paper, it's going to break down if it gets UV exposure. Now, when you have a whole bottle of it like this, I don't know how much of that is actually like affecting it. I don't know if it's just like kind of the outer layer, like how much of it. You can look at it and like, this is a bottle of black ink. I can't see through this thing at all. So I imagine if the sunlight was hitting this, it would be hitting this part of it right here and maybe degrading the dye in the side, but maybe not all the way through it. So it might take a really, really long time for it to affect it enough to really completely change the color. And honestly, I say, and I've been saying for the last many years, that you should not keep your bottles of ink in direct sunlight because it will degrade and blah, 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 blah. I've never had anyone that's come to me and said, I've been keeping my bottle of whatever color in direct sunlight on my windowsill, and in 3 years' time, it's completely changed color. I actually have no real world feedback from anybody that says, yeah, it's really damaged my ink. So this is the kind of thing I could just be saying because scientifically, yes, I know that is going to affect it, but in all practicality, I actually don't know. I actually don't know how long it would last. But it's not been enough of a problem. I mean, we got thousands, tens of thousands of people who have bought ink that have never come back to me and said, oh my gosh, I kept it on my windowsill and now it's unusable. Not once have I heard that. So if you have had that experience, I would love to hear about it because I'd love to be a little smarter about it myself. But I don't really worry about it that much. I don't really have anything going on with direct sunlight here anyway. But I will say that if you are looking to be as archival as possible and you do want your ink to last a long time and not even have to worry or stress about it, just keep it in the box or keep it in a drawer like I do. Then you're going to be safe. But specifically, if you know you're going to keep it out, and your question is quite specific, you got a dark, thick curtain, doesn't let in any sunlight, and you have a low wattage incandescent bulb. So I've talked about the ink. Now I want to talk about light, okay? So I did some research, actually found some good sites and blogs and stuff about actually people that have like skin that is very sensitive to UV light. That's actually where I found some pretty good information that talked about all the different types of light and which one causes the most UV harm and stuff like, ooh, yeah. Ooh, a heavy rain, wow. Anyway, it's a rainy week here at the Goulet Pen Company. So incandescent light, very, very low UV. I don't think you need to worry about that really at all. You know, I really, really don't. The same goes for LED light. So LED and incandescent, you're in pretty good shape. Now, I will say with incandescent, there's federal regulations and stuff that are phasing out incandescent bulbs by 2020. They're not going to be allowed anymore. No more incandescent bulbs. So that's going to phase out. So 10 years from now, when you're going back and watching this Goulet Q&A slice on whatever form of YouTube is in existence at that point, then you are gonna need to know that LED light is also okay, because that's probably what everything's gonna be by then, or whatever new version is gonna be out. LED HD or something, who knows. But other forms of light that are higher UV exposure are fluorescent lighting, like you have in an office setting, and halogen light, which not that many people are using halogen light anyway. And then there's other like metal oxide and all these other things that are like, okay, really probably no one's in that situation where they're storing bottles of ink in those like stadium lighting and stuff like that. So I didn't even cover any of that. But usually it's really like incandescent LED versus fluorescent. So if you have fluorescent office lighting too, even if it's not indirect sunlight, I don't know exactly what the ratio is of UV exposure from fluorescent to, man, it's really coming down out there. That's crazy. Sorry. I don't know the ratio of like fluorescent UV exposure to direct sunlight. I imagine direct sunlight is stronger, but fluorescent is also not the best for that. So it's still a good idea in an office setting if you want it to really be archival and last a long time to keep it in the box, but that's just my 2 cents. So I think you're going to be okay in your situation here. Incandescent bulb, not in direct sunlight, you're going to be just fine. I think we have hail. I think that's what I'm hearing. Yeah, it is hailing outside. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm towards the end of the Q&A anyway, and I'm going to go and make sure that my whole team isn't freaking out. I am hearing like people yelling in the hallways and stuff. I'm literally hearing like golf balls dropping on the roof. Wow. Can you hear that? That's like hitting on the glass window here. Anyway. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up so that I can go make sure that nothing's getting damaged. That's all for this week. Oh man, they're redoing our sidewalk today too. Anyway. I'm super distracted now by hail. So the question of the week, this is all I have for Q&A. The question of the week for this week is, what age were you when you used your first fountain pen? Okay, so I'd love to hear about what age you were. The whole kid pen thing made me think about that, but I'm curious about specifically what age you were. I was 25 when I used my first fountain pen. I found it later in life. I wish I had discovered it earlier, because man, I would have enjoyed school so much more had I been in a fountain pens, but I was never exposed to it. So I'm curious to know what age you were. Please leave that in the comments. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Facebook and all the other social media channels that we're on if you haven't already. Check out all the pens and things that I talked about. Well, not all of them, because I talked about several pens that I don't sell today, but hey, that's okay. Be sure to check them out on gouletpens.com and leave me any comments. Ask me some questions for next week. I would appreciate it very much. Congratulations again to Stephanie for winning that sweet pen. And you can all leave her congratulatory comments there, because we're a supportive community here. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate it. This is great. Have a great weekend and a great rest of the week, and right on.